I'm so honored to have the opportunity to introduce not only one of my dearest friends, but my mentor. She was also a professor in ASL for me. I've known her for a while at the Longhouse and here on campus, Dr. Samantha Chisholm-Hatfield. Thank you so much, Sam.
I am so pleased to be here. Thank you, Val. I'm very honored. So first of all, I want to thank the TEK people for putting this on, and you all for being here, and everyone that's streaming it. I really appreciate your presence. That helps us immensely get the word out about TEK. So I am an enrolled member of the Confederated Tribes of Siletz, and I matrilineally am from the Western Cherokee, from the Corn Tassel and Chisholm lines. So the families, I guess. So that's kind of who I am. I wanted to start out talking about TEK because, as I'm sure you've heard, Western scientific systems are often dismissive of TEK, and it's very frustrating. And what we try to do is really engage that. I started my research because I kept hearing about many of my elders and many of the family members and community members within my Native communities that were dismissed when they went to meetings or when they addressed information that they knew was right, that they knew had been generationally passed down, that they knew was valid, but could not be validated in a Western scientific method. So I really started to focus on how that was and how could that be altered. And then sustainability and resource management research is often dovetailed with TEK, but sometimes it's not called TEK. During my research, I found that many people were addressing TEK philosophies or principles or aspects and coming to Native communities and saying, what has happened? How did you do this? Why did this happen? That sort of thing. And then incorporating it into their policy, but not addressing the TEK and the indigenous aspect of that, and not basically honoring who they were and what they knew, I should say, what they knew as well. So my research focus was this: the ecological knowledge gathered and maintained by the Siletz tribe, thank you, by Siletz tribal members has been significantly altered by the influence of Western societal beliefs and land reductions. And the other work I have done and the research and the speaking engagements and so forth, this is the basis, and then it expands from this. So to understand that, I'm going to walk you through a little bit of history from the tribe. In 2008, there were 4,400 members. Currently, I hear, and I haven't validated the numbers of current members, but I hear it's about 5,000 members that are Siletz enrolled. About 70% live in Oregon. About 60% live in the 11 county service area. So we have 11 counties that we service as a tribe. Because we are a confederated tribe, we come from all over, and I have maps that will show you how far-reaching that is and why that is. We were not lucky enough to maintain our land base, so we have members from all over the place. And then the termination era also affected that tremendously. I'm not sure if you can, yeah, it comes up. This is the 11 county service area that we service, which most of our people are living in. And as you can see, it is far-reaching. There are people all over the place. Siletz is right over in the corner if you can't see it. So we don't have a group on a reservation. Like most people think of, oh, well, all the Indians are on a reservation. We're all over the place in Oregon here. So, as I said, we're a confederated tribe. We are consistent of 27 different bands, at least. There are varying numbers, but at least 27 different bands. And our forced removals from all of those areas began in 1855. And I'll show you Our Aboriginal homelands ranged over 20 million acres. So there's a lot of variance within our TEK. These are our Aboriginal homelands in Oregon. Now, the Aboriginal homelands where people lived is different from where the reservation system was established. So a lot of people think, well, you just said there were 20 million. When we had a reservation system, it started at 1.1 million acres. And this was the original boundary. So it was enormous. From 1857 to 1892, the Coast Reservation consisted of 225,000 acres that were left after reductions. All of these reductions were taken. We were not compensated for any of them. We didn't agree, we didn't enter into any negotiation, they were just taken. So this timeline and map shows the reductions in the years that they were reduced. So Bodhi talked about the General Allotment Act a little bit and the Dawes Act. We were broken up and we were given parcels and allotments, and we were encouraged to farm, or the elders were encouraged to farm, the ancestors. And that really, really was devastating. It really had a big impact for our TEK. The current reservation is a checkerboard. And if you're not sure what a checkerboard is, it's little parcels of land all over the place that they aren't continuous. So while some reservations have a large land base, we do not. We're working to get that back. This is a visual map of our checkerboard holdings, land holdings. So we were terminated in 1954, and through massive dedication and enormous efforts from our wonderful elders, the tribal members began reorganization efforts, and we owe it all to them. And so we were federally recognized, the second tribe. Menominees in the east were the first. We were the second in the west coast. November 17th, 1977. That is a sacred day. So the results from my research were that, given all of this history, you have to keep in mind that this history has gone on, and all the land reductions and the movement and the changes that have occurred. Individuals now note that natural changes and alterations to landscapes have changed significantly. The pertinent TEK information has been retained, but certain aspects of it have been lost or altered or just aren't shared. There are stories that cannot be recalled or lost, and geographic areas that were acknowledged but are currently unable to be accessed or gathered on or just restricted in some manner. So one of the first things that I heard was that there is a reduction of food. Traditional food is a staple, but these are some of the things, and every single person I interviewed had, and some of the people that didn't want to be formally interviewed but shared information, all of them said food was a vital part of what we have lost or have had altered. And it was a great loss. People really miss it. Other foods that were mentioned were berries, different kind of berries, deer and elk population being decreased or not being able to hunt in traditional areas, being barred from certain areas or certain times that they would naturally hunt or were taught to hunt by their elders. Our river foods, the Siletz people sit on the Siletz River, and eels and trout and crawdads and river mussels were all very common, and that was a staple. Reduction of resources used in traditional manners, basketry, carving, our smokehouses, fishing. and then restricted to indigenous areas. I often heard, I would go there, but I can't go there anymore. My grandmother used to teach me. My grandmother used to go X, Y, and Z. And this is very common. There was a lot of sentiment about, this is a private area now. This is a private owner. This is barred. We can't go in there. A lot of frustration. They know where it's at. They would like to use it, but they're unable to. And so the land alterations, such as this, have caused people to change their patterns. They don't go when they would like to. The plants have changed and they can't get them when they would like to. The deer don't come anymore. We don't see any bobcats. The berries aren't as good. That sort of thing was really prevalent. And then limited access to traditional areas. Pressure from non-indigenous society. This is Yaquina Bay. This is one of our collecting sites, and we have the right to go down there. One elder told me that he went down, and he would regularly go down and take some of his family members to teach them to collect. And he said, freely, he said, these people, they watch us. They'll stand there and they'll watch us. And we're not on display. And I kind of, explain that for me, please. I kind of drew him out. And he said, well, one time, these people they came up to us and they said, well, what are you doing? You're killing them. Well, what are you doing? He was collecting off the rocks. He was collecting a food. And they really harassed him. And so he said, I won't take them down anymore, meaning his family. And so he stopped because, although we have the right, it was so harassing that he refused to go down there and refused to teach his grandchildren. So, again, information is being held or suspended. And in the same vein, I heard about people who didn't want to take others into the forest, or didn't want to teach about plants, or didn't want to teach about hunting and gathering, because they felt intimidated, I guess would be a good word to describe it. And so those TEK applications and that traditional knowledge was withheld, and they knew it, and you could tell that they knew it and they talked around it, but the application of it, which is part of our way in how we pass on knowledge, can't be applied. And then one of the other things that came up was that the information has been integrated into common day, everyday applications. This is one of our traditional ways of making salmon, cooking salmon. But notice the concrete blocks. I highly doubt that my ancestors had those. But it's still a funny juxtaposition of how we use things. One of the elders, another elder, told me about when they were eeling, how they would rip off car antennas and use them for hooks and burn tires instead of oil or, the things that they used to have that would light the way to see the eels. And so just an evolution of what do we have, what can we use, what makes it easy, but still maintains this traditional lifestyle. And then most members addressed the information loss. My grandma wouldn't tell me. I didn't get that. We couldn't go. They said they'd tell us later. We can't do that. We're unable. There was a profound sense of loss, but everybody knew that there was something missing. And everybody had a sense of sadness about it, that there was like a hole, like a sore, that there's knowledge out there that we can't utilize. We have it. We know the elders have it. We know it's out there. We can almost touch it, but we can't use it. We can't apply it. This was my favorite part. So my question was, when did you first start hunting or fishing? And this is a commonplace, happened for men or women. And so this was Frank Simmons. Frank has passed, and he's several years now, so why I'm using his name. Ever since I was a young man, I used to go with my dad. Well, when I was a young kid, I guess about 5 or 6 years old, he would take me down to the ocean to gather shellfish and taught me ways to gather all types of shellfish and never turn your back on the ocean, because every so often there's one special wave that comes up on the rocks or on the beach. So be careful. Then about the same time, I'd go with my dad or my uncles to hunt and stuff, and they'd teach me how to track animals. And if it was a buck or a doe, if it was running or if it was just sneaking along, you could tell by the hoof prints. You could tell how big it was, stuff like that. So within that one little paragraph, he gives a wealth of information about what he knows. And when that was expanded on, when I would draw him out, there was pages and pages of information that he knew and could expand on, and would say, well, it's because of this. Well, it's because of that. And they knew it and would like to show it again. But again, many of these places that he noted are inaccessible. This is one of our elders, Gladys Bolton. Well, they used to say, like the squirrels, if the squirrels were really working hard, gathering nuts, it was going to be a bad winter. And if they weren't, it was going to be good. It seems fairly common sense, but people often go, oh, let's look at the Weather Channel. They don't look outside. This is my dad. Because there's going to be animals around wherever there's food that they like, so you go to those areas and start looking. Where there isn't any, you bypass it. There won't be any tracks or anything. It seems very common sense, but some of that information is being lost. You can't show that. You can't apply that. And so how does that get transferred? It's just, there's a dead end. And so the younger generations are at a loss. I heard frequently, well, I don't know that. Go ask my auntie, or go ask my grandma, or go ask my grandpa, or, well, my uncle knows that. And people that were 35, 40, even up to 50 had lost. And they were very sad about it. And there was a sense of, wow, yeah. And it really kind of was frustrating. So the adaptations I saw were geographically, ecologically, environmentally, culturally, and that there's a survival mechanism that kicks in to adapt to everyday life and what it's like. I heard several elders say, oh, nowadays they don't take the time, meaning the younger generations. They're always on their phones, or they're always having to work. They don't take the time for their family. They're always on the go, or they're always playing games, or they're never, outside. And as a younger generation, I think, wow, how often do I get outside? I don't get that opportunity. Struggling to make ends meet and working for jobs and taking care of here and there and that sort of thing. It's really a hard thing to try and fit in all of that knowledge and get it when you can. And then if you can't get out there and the elders can't show you, how do you make that time to do that and know, well, there's no use anyway. Tina was Tina's one of our esteemed council members, and she was very articulate with what she had seen and what she knew. Every single person said, oh, I don't think I know very much. I don't think I can help you. But when I actually spoke with them and drew them out, they knew so much more than they realized, and they weren't conscious about it. It was very, very ingrained. And, oh, well, my grandma showed me that, or, oh, well, my uncle took me there, oh, well, that's why you do X and such. And I think her quote really sums it up very well. I think there are probably things I watch and probably don't even realize because they're pretty ingrained. Things just happen. You just know that's the time. I see that, so it's going to happen. And then here she's talking about when she knows when to go berry picking, and the same thing. She's also articulating one of the things that I found was very central was family. And we all did it together. We were very communal in the way we worked and gathered and hunted and that sort of thing. And I think that's a really sacred part of it that we've lost, as disbursement happened, and some of the families haven't come back together, and modern day society says you live alone, you're individualistic. It really degrades TEK. So why is it important? People keep asking, why is it important? Well, I'm sure you've heard, but TEK is unattainable in other formats. How do you get it? You don't pick up a book. You don't click on YouTube. You don't stream it. You don't get it from Blockbuster. TEK is vital to our identity as natives. And that's not just Siletz natives, but natives as a whole. Friends I've heard, other tribes that I've worked with, that I've networked into, it's a cultural identity. This is our place. This is our knowledge. I was very fortunate to get to sit down and talk with Gregory Cajete from University of New Mexico. And he has fabulous books, and he writes on indigenous science, which is a more broadly based issue, but addresses the same thing. There are things we know, and then you take it down to a local level, and then you take it down even more. And then culturally, we can't survive without our knowledge. So we work in how we facilitate that amongst our environments. How do we do that? How do we integrate that? How do we go forward and maintain and yet be progressive? It affects who we are and the choices we make as natives. And how we evolve and adapt is an integral part of our identity, as well as facilitating our environment.